Hey, welcome to Leaving CrazyTown with Finn and Sarah. We were just wondering, as human beings, as we reflect on our interactions with others and each other this week, how, as human beings, does anything ever get done? Do we ever get along? I mean, we're all just living on our own planet.
Yes.
So that brings me to, I know you love when I ask you, what are we going to talk about today?
No, I mean, basically, this is the thing, people. I mean, this is addiction and codependency, but it's also being human. What we want you to think about is this, and we're going to give a couple of examples. When you're experiencing your week, are there times when someone says something or doesn't say something?
Or does something?
Or
doesn't do something.
And you make up a story in your head about why they're doing it, or it means something about you, or what is the interpretation of the event that you walk away with and maybe feel bad about, but the fact is you don't know what the reality is. It's so funny. I said this to a client once and they're like, that's my entire life.
No, I know why they do it and why they didn't do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm convinced.
Okay, so this is what we're gonna break to you right now that may be disturbing to you.
We're all living in a delusion.
Everybody's in Fantasyland, okay?
Fantasyland.
What you make up in your head...
But shouldn't Fantasyland be fun? Why are we, most of us, doing Fantasyland that creates suffering?
That creates suffering. Yeah, so basically, our Fantasyland is gonna be from the past, right? So say I give this example in the book. Say my boss doesn't say hi to me in the morning and I make up they're mad at me, right? Because my father was always mad at me, or I thought he was mad at me. I will project that onto my boss and make that story up when my boss isn't mad at me. So that we're just giving like quick little examples. So think about that. How many interactions have you had this week where something happens, you make it up? And think about close relationships, okay? Because that happens a lot. Oh, they didn't like that, but you don't say anything. So we're going to give some tools at the end of the video about how to resolve this, because otherwise you are causing yourself so much pain. That's really all fantasy. All right.
I've had many scenarios in my life where somebody said, oh, when I told you this, you didn't even react.
Yes.
And I don't even remember or know they said something to me because I might have been somewhere else. And I'm like, what? I didn't even hear that. Of course I care, but like, yeah. So I don't know. That's just a quick little one.
No, but so
happens
you guys
to me a lot.
I'm sure you all can think of one right now. And I'm going to give a quick example of something that literally just happened this morning. So Finn, without going into tons of details, Finn didn't invite me to a certain thing. And I started, like this morning, I woke up, I'm like, why didn't Finn invite me to that thing? Like, I thought he knew I wanted to go to that thing. And, oh, I bet you he doesn't want me to be there. He probably wants to be with these other. I mean, it was like literally. And again, the thing about me and the thing about Finn is I do know that I could be making up stories. Like, I'm totally aware of that. Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Jesus.
And if you don't think you make up stories, we're going to share with you later a way you can get some clarity.
Clarity on that. Yes, absolutely. So I made up this whole thing. We were getting together this morning, and he came over and we were having coffee. And I said, hey, bud, I just wanted to, what I call reality check, which is a great skill, which means ask the person.
The hard part was she said, when I tell you this, don't laugh. So, of course, actually, when you said you need to do reality check, she said she was going to ask me a question. It might be uncomfortable. I immediately asked for help.
Which is good.
I do that
excellent
because I get scared.
Yeah.
So I have a story when she wants to talk. So whenever anybody wanted to talk to me, I did something wrong, you know? So I just immediately asked for help.
It's a great point.
To stay present and to hear what she's asking. And then of course got fearful that I would automatically start laughing by accident.
All right, so bottom line is I give him this whole scenario, and of course the truth was, it was like this total opposite situation. It was nothing to do with that. It was a total nothing. When we think about like what happened, like literally nothing happened. You didn't say anything to me, and I didn't even really want to go to the event.
Neither do I.
But
that was why.
That was the whole point.
Yeah.
But it was like So that's an example of having a relationship where you can trust someone and you just say, hey, the thing that people do is this, all right? And we're going to talk about this too. The thing people do is I make up a story in my head. I feel rejected by Finn because he didn't ask me to go to this thing. And I think, why did he do that? And I get hurt because I believe the story in my head, okay? Which is the human condition. This is 99.9% of human beings have a thought or a feeling and believe it, okay? So I believe it, I get hurt, and then I react in some bizarre way like
Comes
I
out
reject.
sideways.
Yeah, it comes out sideways. So it affects our relationships.
You know what
constantly.
I would do in those scenarios? What I used to do, I'd be like, oh, well, when they ask me, I'm going to say no.
Yes.
Like, I would plan an advanced rejection because
Yes.
I've been rejected. It's so crazy. And the crazy thing is, like, ultimately, because she asked, I was able to share with her. Like, I thought about it. I'm like, well, why didn't I bring it up? Well, I don't want to go. So the last thing on earth I want to do is invite someone I love to something I don't want to go to because I figure they don't want to go. And so it's just interesting because I have my whole idea of why, and I also invited like mass public people too, so that was kind of interesting. But
all right, do you have an example of a story you make up in your head?
Well, first I want to say,
go ahead.
one of the things that we talked about is what happened.
Okay,
So
this is a tool.
So what happened? Sarah found out about something I was doing and was aware that she wasn't invited. And what's the story you told yourself? Well, that I didn't want her going. Right? And then the last question is, what does she actually know? What she actually knew is what happened. That there's an event that I'm going to and she wasn't invited.
Right.
Bottom line.
Everything else is made up.
Yeah. So she asked for clarity. I thought it created a great conversation because later on I was thinking about it and I was able to tell Sarah that I can't actually imagine any event in my life that wouldn't be made better with her presence.
Oh my God.
So,
Very
even though I may not say that, I know it's not going to fix because her stuff is really about her projection and I do the same thing. What happened for me this past week probably was... I kept projecting. So and most people know, like, I'm taking singing lessons and, piano lessons, not piano, but music lessons. I'm learning to write music and read it. And I've been really fearful. And sometimes my fear kicks in from other ways and then just like becomes pervasive, but it doesn't feel really like fear. I just start managing and controlling outcomes or how I think something could be an outcome. So I projected into like my feeling system that if the music teacher didn't like me, I'd get rejected because, when I was a kid, I got kicked out of choir. It's kind of crazy. And I didn't even know. And I said something to her about being nervous. And my choir teacher, music teacher, whatever, said to me, that's really about the relationship with yourself. It's got nothing to do with me.
She's smart.
So right away, I was like, oh, this woman's speaking my language, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't actually interpret it like, oh, that I was doing that. I was just like, oh, she's speaking my language. Yeah, of course, I know that, right? So I'm keeping it all up here. But I thought about it, and I'm like, what is it about my relationship with myself? And I started realizing that I had this belief that I was rejected as a child for misbehaving in choir, lost this opportunity that I really loved, and, I've carried as a resentment for 50 years and written about many times, and that's actually happening again, and that's going to happen. And if I don't manage and control the scenario, I'm going to be rejected. It's not really what's happening. But I had bought into this belief that was the case. And
this is a great example of the past affecting the present. We talk about this a lot on this channel. Think about that. An old wound from childhood, singing lessons, now same wound coming up. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and this teacher is that's nowhere in her head. She's teaching.
Right.
And when I was able to look at what she said and say, wow, it really is, it's my fear. I've had 3 music lessons, and I got to tell you, the third one, when I had the awareness that I was operating and trying to manage this whole story by myself, the third one was amazing because I let it go. I'm like, she's not her. I'm not 6. I'm, like the scenario is completely different. So, but I could double down on that belief, and start manipulating a situation that it's not even real.
So what we want to say this week, and we're going to wrap this up, are a few things. Please be careful, or just notice this week when you might get afraid, because sometimes the stories happen from fear, okay? And we didn't even go into that part. Fear. Finn went into it with the story about the music. Sometimes the mind starts making up the stories when we're afraid. So I want you to notice this week, if you're in an interaction with a friend or someone you care about or anybody, just notice if your mind starts going up into a story that you're making up, and say to yourself, this could be made up. I don't really know the facts about this situation. And if you can, I don't know if it's safe to talk to the person about it. If it's not, talk to someone else about it and get a reality check. Because you don't want to go down. What the problem is, it's right out of the big book where it talks about fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity. Very often someone makes something up. Oh, they don't like me. And then I react to them in a mean way because I think they don't like me.
I have to tell you, long before I could even identify how I felt about anything, I was pretty certain I was the expert on everyone else's feelings and thoughts. And no clue. It really is all my own stuff. Being projected onto another person.
So a couple things. Watch the stories and also just watch for your own stuff put on someone else. We were giving the example earlier with each other where we've known people who can't constantly say to their husbands, oh, I'm jealous of you. You're attracted to other women. And really they are attracted to other people. It's like, that's an example of projection. Watch if you're saying someone else is feeling something when really it's about you.
And before recovery, I was a cheater, but I thought everybody was cheating on me. Like I saw deceit because I was doing it. Like, hello, I'm projecting it onto others. The other piece is just want to go over this. If you decide that you want to get clarity about something you're telling yourself, I want you to take note at how Sarah approached me, because if somebody's safe in your life and you can approach them, it's great. But you're going to get better response from someone if you don't come at them with, you made me feel this way. When you did this, you did. Like, if she was telling me what I did, I may not have been as open-minded, but instead she was asking for clarity, right? She kept it all on herself. Like, I'm telling myself a story. Will you give me some clarity, a reality check? And she said, you might feel uncomfortable. So, I had these warnings, and she got me into a place where I was going to be helpful to her. She wasn't attacking me for something I did. Some people wake up after having a nightmare about their spouse and they're mad at their spouse all day. Like, those are the things, like, it's made up. I've done that myself, but because she approached me in an open-minded, like, hey, can you help me with some clarity? I'm now able to get centered, ask for help, and then listen to what she's saying and give her the truth.
So work on this week, you guys. And I know you don't probably believe me, but most of your thoughts are not real.
Double check what happened. What am I telling myself about what happened, and what do I actually know? Which is Sarah's stick to the facts.
Start getting some spaciousness, a spacious relationship with your thinking. That's the first step in co-crazy behavior, in co-crazy recovery.
That's why I call it the Tower of Terror. Making up stories.
All right. Fasten your seatbelt. We're leaving. Love you.
We're hoping to leave.